Hi everyone, this is Richard. In this video we are going to go over generics. Generics is a way of typing your classes without knowing what the type is at the time until you actually instantiate it. We had an example of this previously, if you can remember. So if we said something like list A equals, let's just do it this way, right? The contents of A is basically could be anything, right? So we could say it is dynamic, and that would be proper, right? So this could be true, it could be 1, it could be high, right? It could be any of these things. But if we wanted to put something inside of here, say, no, I don't want this to happen. I want it to be only a set of integers, okay? Then it would give me an error automatically. I think in the previous video we talked about this. The error wasn't actually there, but it is showing up in the newer version of the Dart editor. So it's going to have to be 0, 1, 4, and the error goes away. Okay, and we called this parameterized type, right? So this is not new, I hope. So how do we actually do this? So notice that list A, we don't know what this is until you actually create an instance of it. So a list automatically does not tell you what type it is. Int does, right? String does. It says string A, what follows is going to be a string. List is dynamic, so it could be anything unless you specifically have a parameterized type in front of it. So generics is the same concept here. Let's have an example right here. Class cake. And I have frosting and the type of cake. So frosting, I'm going to say, I might want you to say frosting is true or false because I might not have frosting. But at other times, I might want you to say that frosting is green or purple or whatever, or it's thick. So it could be either a string or it could be a bool, right? Not both, just one or the other. And then type, I could say a round cake, so that would be a string. I could say it's a, let's just say, for example, I have a list, and number 1 cake says it's a wedding cake. The number 2 cake on the recipe, on the menu, would be a round cake. Number 3 would be a chocolate fudge sundae cake or something like that. So this could actually be an int, right? Depending on if I had a menu and I would just match it up with the actual integer, the number of the product itself. So if I did this, I could, so I don't necessarily know what these types are until I actually instantiate it, right? So if I say, okay, cake, my cake equals new cake, I could say, what's going on here? Oh, I need 2 arguments. Let's just say, actually, I'm going to take this away. So I'm going to have the default constructor. So I'll say my cake dot frosting equals like a blue frosting, and my cake dot type equals 1. And that all works out well. But what if I don't want to use dynamic typing? What if I want to use static typing? Again, just I want the system to check these things for me so I don't make any mistakes as best as possible. So I want this to be statically typed. But in this instance of the cake, I want it to be blue. But what if I say in another instance, cake, your cake equals new cake, and in your cake dot frosting equals false. So your cake doesn't have frosting in it because you didn't pay for it or something. I don't know, but your cake doesn't actually have frosting, so that's actually a bool more than anything else. But so I could use var and that'll work. But again, I don't want dynamic typing. I want static typing. So what I would say here is the generic type is here. Most of the time, the generic type is a T. I've seen E. You could put any letter there, but T is most common for the one type. And then you would put it here. And here. So what I'm basically saying is, I don't know what this type is right now, but once you instantiate it, once you create an object out of it, that type will be right inside of here. So if we go here, we'll say instead of my cake equals new cake, we'll have to say, what is the type? And right here, I'll say string. All right, so then it'll check this for me. And if I put 5 right here, the computer is going to give me a, okay, well, it should have given me an error. Let's just see what happens if I run it. Okay, at least it gives me an error when I try to run it, okay? It's maybe there's a little bug right here. Type error, int is not subtype of string. All right, so we're noticing that it says the cake has to be a string. So this is the generic type. I'm sorry, this is the generic type. Once you instantiate it, this is the parameterized type. We already knew that. And so when you try to actually give it a value, it has to be consistent with this value right here. So it would be frosting, I said blue, right? And my cake.type equals 1. You can't do that, so it would be either 1, or you could just say type equals round. Okay? And in your cake, the cake will be bool. So your cake.frosting equals false, so that actually works. So if I run it, it should work perfectly fine. Yeah, it works perfectly fine. Okay? So we could do a little bit of flexibility right here. So what if there's a T? I could also put a E right inside of here. So let's just say frosting is T and the type is an E. Again, generic types. I don't know what these types actually are. But once I instantiate it, then I'll figure it out. So this one I want string and string. This one I want bool and frosting, int, and bool. So this frosting, I want it to be actually number 4 on the list of frostings that I have. Number 4, and then your cake dot type is going to equal, so that's a bool, it's going to be true. It's actually true. It's going to be a type. Okay, again, that doesn't make any sense, but I think this is the concept. Generics, you have no idea what this type is intentionally until you instantiate it. But once you instantiate it, this becomes the parameterized type. You use these types in order to tell you what the actual type will be. So the editor will help you along the way, and you won't have to use dynamic typing if you don't want to. Just for the record, generics is a little bit more advanced, and you may not use them for a long time until you get really good and really advanced in programming. But this is just the concept of it, because I know this word is thrown around a lot, and if you don't understand what it means, you'll be missing out. Well, you won't really be missing out, but now that you understand what it means, you don't necessarily have to use it all the time. Play around with it if you can, but if you don't find a great use for it at this stage in the game, that's perfectly understandable. Thanks a lot.